Hi everyone, welcome back. So today I am making a art journal page, and I ran out of, well actually I didn't run out of, I'll tell you the story about the gesso in a minute. So what I did instead, because I don't have any, is I used some white acrylic paint and a baby wipe just to go over the pages, because this is actually a sketchbook, so it's not meant, the paper's not meant for art journaling and things like that and getting sort of moisture on it. So you'd have to gesso your pages anyway, even in an art journal, so that things can grip to them. It gives them like teeth, so to speak. But obviously being a sketchbook, I still wanted to use this, and I've done a previous video on the very first page. This is only the second and third page in this book, so it's been a while. And so I just wiped that on with a baby wipe. It just was easy. It gave it enough moisture, but it wasn't super thick paint. And then I've got a Stampin' Up, it's like a medallion style stencil, and I'm going to stencil on using some Tim Holtz Crackle texture paste. This is not the crazing, which is like the collage medium. This is the proper texture paste that has a full-on crackle in it. Now, I did a very thin layer, and depending on how thick you do this will depend on how big your cracks are. Which I know sounds funny when I say that out loud, but yeah. So I just put a thin sort of layer on, and the texture of this stuff is sort of like, it reminds me kind of like that mallow, you know, they're like the marshmallow, but they're soft marshmallow before it becomes a marshmallow kind of thing, that you can buy in like tubs. So it's sort of the texture it reminds me of anyway, and it's shiny like it as well. And then this is another Stampin' Up stencil that I had, and it's got kind of a diamond pattern, like a square diamond sort of shape on it, and I thought it worked really well with the medallion. I thought the two went together. So now I'm just going to make sure I clean that up, and also I needed to let all these bits dry properly. So what I'm going to do next, and you'll see this as we go, all of my nozzles on all of my sprays are clogged. So I didn't want to waste the stuff that's inside, because it's still good product. It's just the nozzles don't work. So I have a little ceramic dish that I am going to just pour a little bit of that in there, and use a wide-ish, about a 1 inch wide brush, but a sort of a flat brush rather than a round brush, and just paint it on. So it'll have more of a streaky look than you won't really notice it, to be honest, but more of a, you know, because of the brush strokes, rather than a sprayed look. Yeah. Every single thing, every single nozzle was blocked on everything. You'll see even my I drag out my resist spray just for some extra texture, and it's completely blocked. It's fine now, but these nozzles I couldn't unblock at all. So I think I'm either going to have to see if I can find some nozzles that will fit these bottles, or I'm going to just have to buy new bottles and decant this into the new bottles. Anyway, so I've got some brown now that I started with the blue, and then I've got some brown, and what it is a these are homemade sprays that I made quite a long time ago, which is probably why the nozzles are dried out. And they are basically, I used some warm water, and I used some I think it's Dr. Martens Bombay inks, and they are highly pigmented and they're beautiful. You can watercolor with them, but as soon as they dry, they do not move. They're completely permanent. So it's nice for things like an art journal page, or a mixed media page where you or mixed media project where you are creating layers, but you don't necessarily want the layer below to move once it's dry, which a lot of watercolor products, or some, will react again with water. So here I've got the purple one, and this is where I'm going to layer on top of the what what do you call it, the medallion, I can't say it, the medallions. So these are kind of becoming my little worlds, and it'll make sense with the like the phrase, sentiments, title, whatever it's called on an art journal page. It'll make sense with that in a minute as well, as to why I did that. This, I don't overthink this. I don't think about where I'm putting things. I don't think about I don't plan them out. Art journal pages for me are very much a emotional outlet. They are a way to just get something out of my head and onto a piece of paper, a bit like you would if you had a gratitude journal and you write all your emotions down, or your feelings, or whatever it is. I do it in art form. That's just how I roll. I can't talk. I'm not very good at that. I mean, I'm waffling now, but I'm not, that kind of talk. Anyway, so that's just what I do. And then I tried to splatter with the big brush. That was weird for me. So I used a paper towel that was scrunched up, and I used the extra because I didn't want to waste it or try and get it back in the bottle of the purple, and I just used it to sort of create more texture, because there's texture on the paper towel. So I just created some extra texture in the background. It's very subtle, but it's another layer again. So with any mixed media or art journals, layering is a kind of a key thing, and the more layers you add, the more interest it has. So just quickly back to the old gesso. Right at the beginning I said I would tell you what happened with that. So it took us about 10 minutes to get the jar open, and then when I finally got into the jar, I realized it was solid at the bottom. I mean, I'd used most of it, to be fair, but it was solid. I mean, like nothing was going to bring the stuff back, so hence the acrylic paint. But gesso's a better key for that, and I have actually got a recipe for like homemade gesso, and people seem to, I've seen the same sort of recipe across the across the board, so people seem to quite enjoy and seem to like that as a cheap alternative, because it is super inexpensive. So I might do a video on that just to show you how to put that together, and then I'll see whether I like it as well, or whether I'm just going to buy some actual gesso. We'll see, because not all gessos are equal. There are some that are better than others, I will say that. So anyway, back to the page. I'm now splattering it with all the different colors. So I used the purple, I used the blue, I used the brown, and I'm using the nozzle of the spray bottle to actually use as a splatter thing. So you can do this even if your spray bottles still work. You can still do this as an extra bit of splatter. I also had some black and some white, and I believe I then used my resist spray. Now the resist spray typically you would put on first, and then whatever the color is underneath, when you then go over the top with a darker color, it will then show through. It will resist that part of it. But I used it, and it was just this lovely, gave it this lovely sort of shiny, like almost like dewdrops on the background. So I then went through and grabbed the smallest doll out of the paper dolls from Tim Holtz that I got last year in a birthday haul, I believe, and I also dragged out a, like, it's almost like a fairy, I don't know, like a little fairy castle with a few extra bits. And my husband bought this for me about 12-13 years ago, and I've just never known what to do with it, because I'm not very good with toppers for cards. I like to make my own, so I'm kind of weird like that, but I didn't know what to do with it. And then I thought, actually this would be kind of cool, because it kind of works with what I was thinking for the title, and where I got the title from in my head. So it works. So, and I'll explain that in a minute as well. So I added I'm using some collage medium now by Tim Holtz, and this is the matte version. There is a vintage which has got this sort of brown undertone, and then there's also a crazing, which is what I think I was talking about earlier, where that will just give like a, underneath the top layer you'll have like a crazing, like a crackle, but not really a crackle, like a really fine crazing or crackle, right? whereas the Crackle medium that we used, text paste that we used earlier, is on the top. So when you go over the top of that, it will, whatever you put on it, the ink will go into the cracks, whereas with the crazing it will just sit on top of the paper. It's very cool. It's very, very, very cool. And all I'm doing is I'm using it as an adhesive to stick it down first, and then I'm using more of it over the top to like seal it into the page, like onto the page. You won't see it in the end. It's a matte, this is a matte version, so you won't see it at all. But the one thing I learned really, really quickly is that I am too stingy with it, and so use your products, guys. I will say that. I've had this now since last year's birthday, and I still barely used it. So use it, otherwise it will go hard and you'll lose it, but like my gesso, although that I've had for many years. And then this is where there's a bit of a funny thing behind this. This is where I've taken out all the letters that I cut out. They're about 1 inch, and I used the Rock Princess Cricut cartridge, or image set, depending what you got. And the letters I found they're very whimsical. So they all have, I don't know if you guys can tell, but I could tell straight away. They have this sort of, obviously being Rock Princess, they've got this sort of rock skulls and roses and that kind of thing. And there's these little hearts that are almost like embedded in as part of each of the letters, which is what I love. That's what drew it to me. And also it makes it look like bones, so it's kind of funny. But I love this font. It's such a cool font. So I cut it out and was obviously arranging the letters because there's quite a few of them. And so the phrase says, there are worlds within worlds. Now if you've ever watched, and I will explain, I'm laughing because I can see what I did wrong here. If you've ever watched Fern Gully, you'll know what that means. So anyway, so I, again with the collage medium, I'm just painting it on. This is the same brush, by the way. I just rinsed it off, as you know, from the paint and the what do we call it? I suppose the Bombay ink sprays that I was using earlier. So I just rinsed it off out of a tub of water next to me. And then I'm going to first put down the collage medium and stick them on top. And then once I've done all of them, I'll go back to the first word and go over the top with the collage medium again. You can do this all in one go, but I found it was easier for me just to do little bits like this, just so that they could adhere a little bit. The collage medium will help you stick, it will stick pretty quick. So, you know, it's kind of like you don't have an awful lot of time to think about things. And you'll see this in a minute. But it's, once it's down, it's down. But because I had so much texture, because the paper was warped because of all the texture and everything I'd done on it, I just wanted to make sure that they were stuck enough so that when I went back, I didn't have to worry about them moving, which I didn't think they would, but you know, just in cases. So this is where, because I was sorting my letters out, I realized while I was editing that this is why I got this wrong. My husband actually pointed this out to me afterwards, that I put all the words out, and I was like, oh, I need an R for here and an L for there, and you know, all that sort of thing. And I laid them all out, and I got all the words spelt right except the last one. But I thought in the end, and we did try and lift it to swap the letters around. I basically spelt the word worlds on the second one wrong. But we tried to lift it up to swap the letters around, and the collage medium was proper stuck. So that's what I say. Once it's down, it's down. But I actually quite like that it's spelt wrong because of the phrase itself. So there are worlds within worlds, and it's just, it kind of fits. But I couldn't believe it. I was letting it dry. He went to have a look at it, and then he was like, do you realize you've made a spelling mistake? And I went, no. So yeah, well, things happen anyway. So because they're on the letters themselves, there are some of the, like I said, the little hearts that sort of give this sort of bone look, or they're little hearts as well. I have these clay hearts, I say that enough, I have these clay hearts that are from Lucy's Cards, or Little Lucy's, no, Lucy's Little Cards. And she is a UK run business. You check her out on Instagram and her website. I'm not affiliated with her, but you know, she's local to me and I like supporting local. So she has all these different like pearls and beads and can't think now, gems, and all these clay doodads. I don't know what to call these little things. And so I I grabbed them and just went through and found a like rainbow of colors that matched the castle and the background, and laid them onto all the heart shapes that are on the letters. And then I do realize that I missed the A. The A actually has one as well, and I didn't realize that at the time. And then in hindsight, I kind of wish I'd also done something with the middle of the R's, because they have like a bigger heart cut out of them, but I didn't know. I could have maybe put something in there, but anyway, so it's Lucy's Little Things. I think that's what it's called. I missed that now. Anyway, and for me, I in hindsight, I don't know that I should have done this. But if you want to highlight your letters, then just go around them. If there's a dark enough cardstock and you want to highlight like black on white sort of thing, or white on black, then just use a white gel pen and just go around. This is a Sakura one. I've had it for years as well, and just it highlights that, and again it gives another bit of interest on the page. I'm doing an art journal page, but you could use the same principles and do this on your cards, on your scrapbook pages, any of your albums, whatever you want, mixed media, things that you can actually create and stick on the wall. You can do any of that sort of thing. And I think this going around the outlining it kind of gives it this more of a whimsical feel, which kind of ties in with the fairy castle and the little girl and stuff like that. So anyway, it's just my thought on it. And also at the end of the day, art journaling and art in a whatever form you decide to go by, whether it's like I say art journaling or mixed media, or creating 3D items for your home, or cards or scrapbook page, whatever it is, it's yours. So do what you feel is right. So that's why I say when I was creating the background, I didn't think about what I was doing. It just happened that the two what they call those two medallion shapes, suddenly I thought, oh, they look like worlds, like they could be a planetary world, if you know what I mean. And it kind of tied in with the wording that I was, with the words that I was using on it. So just do what you feel is right. That's the right thing to do. There are no wrongs. So yes, and I think also art journaling for me is kind of like a free form way of just doing something artsy. Cards have a more methodical, engineered way with them, whereas art like this and art in terms of mixed media and that, it's free form, it's anything goes. And I know some would say cards and scrapbook pages can be the same sort of thing, but to me they're not. They're more linear, I suppose, whereas this is more freeing. This for me, like I say, is an emotional outlet, so it's just whatever happens on that day and whatever lands on that page, that's what happens, even if I spell the words wrong. So I hope you've enjoyed this. I did this as a voiceover, but I may have some art journal or mixed media pages and things that I do in the future that I will use music and speed through, rather than chatting through it. Because but yeah, I hope you've enjoyed this, guys, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.